Hey team, happy Wednesday and welcome to another distance learning edition of Challenge and Change. Today's topic is money and power. Specifically, we're looking at how power in a capitalist society is viewed and how it's maintained through the owning class and the way that cultural hegemony continues to have the working class pay for goods and services that they're the ones producing. So, to start, let's take a look at a quote from Henry Ford. Henry Ford, famous for being the inventor of Ford cars. It's not the employer who pays the wages. Employers only handle the money. It's the customer who pays the wages. That's an interesting idea when you think about it because it means the consumer is really in control of the wealth of the owning class. If we take that idea and we move forward, I want you to think about a time in life where something has seemed unfair. Perhaps a teacher giving out too much homework, or perhaps a time when maybe you put a lot of effort into something, whether it was an essay or an assignment, a lab, whatever it happened to be. And when you got it back, the return on your investment was less than you wanted it to be. Maybe you thought you put in enough effort to get that 90%, but when you saw your paper, when you saw whatever it was that was handed back, you only got 65 or 70% on it. That feeling of unfairness, now I want you to try to transition into a paycheck. So, again, you log 40 hours, let's say at Sports Check or at Metro or at Lady York, whatever it happens to be. At the end of those hours, you think that your value is going to be validated via the amount that you've earned. And when you see your paycheck, you feel as though your efforts were underscored. Now, when you take a look at this idea, it can create a form of conflict because people feel upset when their pay doesn't match their work or their effort. Conflict is going to arise due to a difference of opinion or due to social inequality. So again, these social inequalities are going to come from the people paying their wages. They believe that because they're offering somebody a job, the amount that they're giving is what should be deemed as okay for that worker to do the work. It was agreed upon at the end of that 40 hours. The worker should be justified in knowing that that was what was agreed to and that they're being employed. Now, Karl Marx began to examine this issue as a difference between classes as a way of understanding who we are and how our social situations are constructed. Marx also noted that social class is shaped by conflict. So that conflict between having the power to dictate a wage and being in the position where you need to earn a working wage. So, just before we get into this next portion, I want to go over a few words for vocab. So, first and foremost, bourgeoisie is the member of a property-owning class. They own the means of production. I'll either refer to them as the owner class, the wealthy, or the bourgeoisie throughout. Capitalism, something that you're familiar with, is the economic system where the means of production is privately owned and profit is earned in competitive conditions. So, for example, if I open a business, if I open a shoe store and I decide that I want to sell only Adidas, that's my strategy. I'm going to charge, $200 a pair of shoes. However much money I want to make off of that business, I can. If I make $1 million a year, great. If I make $100,000 a year, great. It's up to me to be able to drive my sales. Versus a competitor who might also own a shoe store beside me. They're going to sell Adidas, Nike, New Balance, Reebok, Skechers. And they can charge different prices for their shoes. And again, they might mark down some shoes to try to take business from me. If they make $1 million at the end of the year, great. If they make $100,000, great. It's a competitive marketplace. You're allowed to make as much as you want, and you're allowed to move your pricing around in order to do so. There's also the petty bourgeoisie. These are the lower middle class. When Marx was looking at this in the 1800s, this would have included tradespeople, shop owners, and craft people. Now, there's also the proletariat, which I will refer to as the working class, lower wage earners, etc., or the proletariat. Essentially, these are people who sell their skills for money. or their labor for money, I guess, depending if you're looking at things in terms of skill value, and there isn't a lot of skill to it. According to Marx, society is split into two major social groups. One, the property-owning bourgeoisie, and two, the working-class proletariat. There is a third minor group of the petty bourgeoisie or the middle class. If you look at social structure today, this is the same. There are two main classes, the owning class and then the lower class, and a middle class that is shrinking in terms of size. As the wealth gap increases, as the rich get richer and the less wealthy get less wealthy, the middle class actually becomes more and more lower middle class and transitions down to that line of living wage. Marx believed where a person fits in this group defines their social status and therefore defines the opportunities available to them within society. So for example, if you are in the lower class, you automatically have limited opportunities, whereas somebody in the owning class is going to have opportunity to own more and gain more wealth. They already have the wealth there to further invest, to buy another business, to branch out, stocks, bonds, what have you, whereas the lower working class is going to have less opportunity because their dollars are being constricted to basic needs and necessities. So they don't have the option of gaining wealth because their money is constantly being put into areas of need, or what they believe are areas of need. Now, when it comes to power and control, the bourgeoisie derives its power from owning and controlling the means of production, meaning they own and run large-scale operations that produce the goods in society that people will consume. If we're consuming a good and we're paying for it, that money has to go somewhere. So, in the working class works to produce these goods, and then they use those wages made from production to buy what they produced. Now, this isn't like a one-to-one exchange. It's not like if I work at McDonald's, I'm specifically going to use my paycheck to buy McDonald's. What I'm going to do is use my paycheck to buy other things that are being produced by other producers. So for example, I work at McDonald's for 40 hours, I get my paycheck, I then go buy a pair of shoes, I buy gas, I pay the insurance on my car, I pay my rent. Those things are being produced, that money is accounted for. It's not going to establishing more wealth for me, it's going into paying for things that other people are producing, and so on and so forth. Marx believed that this is exploitation of the working class and that the proletariat oppressed people through this idea of capitalism. He further argued that social institutions like governments or legal systems are tools by which the ruling class keeps the working class under control while the bourgeoisie further their agenda. This equals the conflict between the haves and have-nots. So, for example, if I want to increase my profit margin as an owning class, I need to be able to make the most money off of people. In order to be able to make as much money, because I'm allowed to in a capitalist state, I have to find ways to do this. Now, the government also, who wants to be able to say that people are working in their country, will enforce the idea that, they're creating jobs in an economy by giving stimulus to things like big business so that big business will open factories, jobs, production, shops, etc. in their country. What that does is give more money to the owners, and while it looks like jobs are being created, and they are, the types of jobs being created are not always those that are going to create a bulk of wealth for those now being hired, but rather low-income earning wages, by Marx's examples. This is the idea that Marx is trying to show, is that if you are in the poor or lower earning class, you'll do anything to make a little bit of money. Again, that desire or that need to pay for basic necessities, versus if you're in a position to be in control, the rich will, according to Marx, do anything to the worker to make a lot of money. Let's get this one. This is sort of Marx's view, is that the owners here, the machinery is very productive, I own it, that's why I'm rich. Again, because they're in the owning class. but they didn't build the machinery, they don't operate the machinery, and the owners, per this cartoon, don't seem to do any work at all. You'll also know that there are more workers to owners. This was Marx's belief, that there were so many members of the proletariat and so many fewer members of the bourgeoisie that the proletariat should be able to demand more of the owning class. Okay, Marx also took a look at the economy of a crisis, or the economy of a country when it is troubled. This goes to the idea that when a country is troubled, its people are too. Marx wanted to understand how economic crisis was created. This idea of crisis and rolling economy is another factor of what keeps people who are in the working class afraid to make too many moves, because there's always that fear that if something happens, I won't be able to provide basic necessities. It's also the thing that allows the owning class to want to, gain more money and gain more profits during times of a rise in the economy. So Marx noted that every economy will have a slump followed by a boom where people are making money. A crisis will hit. We might be seeing this right now, which will be followed by a slump in the economy as things like, government stimulus and new business and people who have money have the opportunity then to buy and create because they had those savings. There will be a boom in the economy followed by a crisis, and this cycle will continue to move forward. When it comes to the idea of how working affects our environment, it's important to understand the message centered around crisis. When people are worried about job security, you can think about this right now, saving for the future and providing basic necessities for one's family, these conversations become very popular at the dinner table. They're molded into conversations relating to the state of the economy, and these things impact us on a personal level. Now, from looking at things like adolescent task and the family household, that these ideas become embedded in us later on. If you were part of a family that had a conversation centered around the idea of, fear and struggling and, living wages and moving forward, that idea becomes ingrained in decisions that you're going to make in the future. This personal connection also shapes how we view the idea of achievement and success as measured by society. So again, a conversation that might be centered around struggle, fear about bill paying, etc., versus conversations, that might revolve in a different way around property ownership, value, investments, etc., shape a very different sort of view of what success and achievement can be. And the difference between the two serves as part of that conflict between the working class and the wealthy. This is also a good time, everybody, to keep comparison theory in mind. Upward and downward comparison, as well as that idea of wanting to have what a neighbor has or what somebody else has and willing to spend in order to do so. I'm going to stop here for this presentation, and then part 2 is next.